Bears! This is Bear Blast, the official podcast of student life at Mott Community College. Whether you're new to campus or have been here for a while, this is your spot to catch up on what's happening, hear real stories from students and staff, and find new ways to get involved. From events and campus tips to student success stories and special guests, we're here to help you make the most of your time at MCC. Let's get started!
Welcome back to Bear Blast. My name is Alyshia, and I am the Student Life Coordinator at Mott Community College. Thank you guys for joining us today. We have a pretty cool subject that we're interested in talking about. But before we get into that, I'd like to introduce you to our special guests for the afternoon. Many of you have heard from some of them before because they are a part of the Student Presidential Advisory Council. So we welcome you guys back. And then we also have an extra special guest, somebody that has not been on the podcast before. So we're very excited to hear from her as well. So before we get started, as you know, everybody knows who I am because I never stop talking on this podcast. But the rest of you, go around and just introduce yourself a little bit. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what your major is and when you intend to graduate.
Hi, my name is Grant Morrison. I'm currently studying business here at Mott. I'm planning on transferring over to U of M this next fall. I'm currently a member of SPAC as well as the CLEF committee.
Hi, I'm Julia. This is going to be my final year here at Mott. I'm graduating in the spring. My major is baking and pastry arts, and I'm excited to be here.
Hi, my name is Peace Aja. I'm in the nursing program. I'm going to be graduating December.
And my name is Dawn Hibbard. I am currently the Director of Communications for the Flint Center for Educational Excellence downtown.
All right. Well, welcome, everybody. Thanks again for coming back. As we usually mention in the beginning and in the end, we want everyone to know that if you are interested in subscribing to our channel, we'd love to have you frequent this page, ask the questions that you'd like to ask below, and we will hopefully be able to respond to you promptly so that we can get all the information about Mott Community College out to our community. So thanks again for listening. If you are a student, hopefully we have some effective communication and resources for you today. So our subject today is the social media effect, building a positive online presence. So we are going to talk about social media etiquette and its impact on the student life. So we're by that we mean students' lives, not the Office of Student Life, for those that have been listening to this podcast before. So we're really interested I'm really interested at least in your guys' perspective of social media because it is so frequently changing. And I know a lot of us, especially in my office, the older we get, the more detached we get from social media, and we don't have a full scope or understanding from your perspective. So we're very interested in hearing a little bit about that. So we're going to jump into this session today, and we just have a few questions to kind of note back and forth, but I'm actually very excited because I want to know how do you guys think social media impacts students' behavior, academic performance, or mental health? So as we've talked about before, it is literally attached to your hip, right? Because it's on your phone. And we want to know, like, how do you think that impacts your daily life as a student? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is there some in between? How does it affect you personally?
I think personally for me, social media can be a big distraction. I definitely, like you were saying, attached to the hip at all times. It's always right there in front of me. As soon as I have schoolwork or something that's weighing on me, it's so easy just to pull out that phone and scroll on TikTok, scroll on Instagram Reels for hours at end. Next thing you know, you've lost out on all that time. So I definitely think it's more of a hindrance to me than it has been a help.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I would say that with more social media apps, we just keep getting more notifications to our phone. So even if somebody's not contacting us, now we're kind of getting that constant flow of advertising or information or both. So I think that can distract from it, but I also see it as a positive in terms of communication, not only for advertising for events, but also communication within student groups and projects and things like that.
All right. So with that being said, what are some of the platforms that you guys use? So I know there's a lot of stuff that we old timers use, right? But for you guys, what's the most up-to-date thing that you think most students enjoy?
Well, for me, I use the WhatsApp and
WhatsApp?
Instagram.
Okay.
So I don't know. Most of my friends use WhatsApp and Instagram.
Okay. So for those that might not know what either of those platforms are. Can you tell me a little bit about them, like a general synopsis? Are they communication? Are they entertainment? What's the idea?
Yeah, WhatsApp, it's a social media platform that you can use to chat with your friends. You can send pictures, you can send audio messages. Right now, I think they keep updating it. You can view live channels there. You can see so many stuffs there. But previously, it was just a messaging app and profiling app where you can upload your profile pictures. People can see it, comment, like. Then Instagram, everybody knows about Instagram. We upload pictures. We see so many stuff that are happening. You get notifications about what's happening around you. I mean, friend request.
That's right. So I know that we do have a wide variety of listeners, especially a variety of student age groups as well. So I know that most of our demographics coming into college are between the ages of 18 and 21, roughly. But we also have our older demographics as well, which don't frequent social media as often as I'm sure the rest of you do. But what other kind of apps do you guys use?
TikTok.
That's right.
TikTok for the youngies.
That's right. That's right. I think that was one thing that I started over COVID by the suggestion of a much younger family member of mine. And so I got onto TikTok and I've never gotten off, which is in and of itself very addicting.
That is a big distraction.
Yes,
it's a
big
hole
distraction.
you can fall in for sure.
And so TikTok, for those that are listening, is a platform of mostly entertainment. However, it has kind of branched into a lot of different things now.
There's now a STEM tab.
Yes.
Now used for business also.
Business, STEM, you can use it for politics. You can use it for literally like learning how to cook if you want to do that, like short recipes. There's like woodworking videos. There's actually a gentleman on TikTok that he's like a surrogate dad for those of them never been or have not had a dad in their life.
Yep.
And he will teach you the fundamentals of like how to change a tire and what to do when, the light switch in your house goes bad.
How to tie a tie.
How to tie a tie, yeah. So there's many resources on TikTok, and I think that's the draw. A lot of students were saying that it started out as more of a dance sort of app, a more entertainment thing, but it's morphed into this much more resourceful version. However, it can be incredibly addicting.
As have all social media apps, to be honest with you. I mean, I was on Facebook, so this is how old I am. I was working at a college, and I was on Facebook before it was open to the general public. So I have seen literally every iteration of social media that there can possibly be.
Yeah.
And I know people are going to take me down or, go after me in the streets for this, but I still think things like Reddit are the most cumbersome, clunky things I've ever tried to use. Sorry. So which is why I understand why Facebook, when it first came out, was so much more streamlined. And then Instagram has sort of taken over that sleekness, and now it's starting to get as clunky. But I think what we all have to remember is not only are these distractions, and like TikTok, you're talking about the great the information you can get there. My husband, who's older than I am, he loves YouTube videos, and he learned how to pour cement and do all kinds of crazy things because he's an engineer. But I think what we have to realize too is that in and amongst all of this really useful information is a lot of junk.
Right.
And that's where becoming literate in what is AI generated, what is targeting you, that kind of thing, that's important right now in the conversation about social media. It's not so much its use and how often one uses it, but just to be aware of what's being shoved at you.
Right. And I think it's important, which is another topic we can talk about, is misinformation. So like we got to be real careful about what you're drawing in out there, and before you're, doing some checking on some of that information before, you're either disseminating that to other people or you're just having an issue trying to resolve whatever conflict you're going through at the time. So,
and that takes a lot of research. Somebody posted something on social media related to politics, and it was in line with my political beliefs, but I chose to take the time to research it. So I went on Snopes, and then I went on foreign media, which really helped because it was talking about something offshore. So I looked at Al Jazeera America, or Al Jazeera English, I should say. And I looked at BBC America.
Right.
And I confirmed that was actually said. I saw actual photographs. I saw reporters at reputable newspapers who had written about it. And so I was able to, then I felt comfortable sharing that information, and I put the disclaimer on it. And interestingly enough, a friend of mine actually came on and pushed back with all of the usual tropes that people who don't do their research push back with. And this is somebody I've known since college. So what do you do at that point?
Right.
I just politely agreed to disagree with her at that point.
Yeah, and that's really the thing that I believe that our social media era has really contributed to a lot of conflict and misinformation and things that have gotten out there where we're struggling to have a grip on some of the actual facts. And that doesn't even necessarily mean it has anything to do with politics. It might be something related to a specific field. Like, we don't want people out there telling you to put like antifreeze in your gas can. Like that is definitely not,
or to drink bleach.
Or the whole Tide Pod craze that happened. Like, there's a lot of things that people will follow on the internet that we definitely don't want to be party to. And it can give you a stigma. It can affect your mental health, which is my next question for you guys. So, do you believe that the social media affects your academic performance and your self-esteem or mental health? If that's the case, how? And how do you deal with that?
For me personally, it definitely, like, if I'm avoiding school, I can get very depressed very quickly if things start piling up and I start to feel a sense of like, oh crap, what am I doing? And then that anxiety builds up more and more, and the more I look at social media, the deeper that hole gets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So definitely for me, it's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's not really distracting because I control social media. I do not allow social media to control me. Like I said, I don't really use TikTok, but what I try to do is that I follow nursing students on TikTok, so that whenever I open TikTok, I see nursing students. I see nursing topics. I see things that are distracting me in the nursing aspect. So that is how I try to use my social media. I don't go about following people that like to dance or people that are just doing things that I really don't like. So that is how I use my social media, so I don't allow it to distract me.
That's good. That's good. And that takes a lot of willpower. I can tell you that. There are some people who do really well with that and others that don't. Yeah. I think most recently I'm falling more into Grant's perspective on it, where I try to control it and I try to make sure that it's not affecting me mentally. But I have fallen into that category where I'm like, I have to stop. I got to stop watching this. Or maybe I need to watch videos of cats or something to bring that, to elevate the levity of it a little bit for me, so that I'm not nearly as like brought down by some of this, national and international news and all that stuff, But I think it's subjective. I think some people can handle it, some people can't. But I think there's also both ends of it too. Mm-hmm. So
I think for me too, a way I combated that to like get more control is setting a schedule. Like 2 hours before I go to bed, no phone.
Right.
When I wake up, no phone. And just starting and ending your day like that can be a huge difference in your mental capacity when you're waking up and going to sleep. And there are studies that show, like, if you're looking at screens before you go to sleep, it can wreck your sleep schedule.
Right. Yeah. And I have seen people, this is not something I actively participate in. I probably should. But they've mentioned, like, you put your phone in another room, and everybody's argument always is, well, I use my phone as an alarm clock. Well, buy an alarm clock. Go to a thrift store and get an alarm clock. Don't make excuses if you want to make effective change, right? If you want to be better, and this might be something that could be a solution to that, try it. See if it works and remove it as a distraction physically, and then maybe that will help you with your mental health. And we can't guarantee that, but it's worth a try.
Here's a radical idea. Delete all the apps from your phone and only look at them when you're on a laptop.
That is another one. I had a roommate that did that actually, and she said that it really helped her mental health. And this was before TikTok, and she does not have TikTok today because she said, I don't need it. I've already have nothing on my phone, so I'm not even going to venture in that direction because I know how addicting it can be. And so I feel like that's incredibly effective too. Now, some people might last a week and then they download it right back to their phone. So I think it's definitely something, again, to try. It might work for you, it might not, but it does take some willpower because it is an addiction. And that is another thing that we don't have the right people here today amongst us professionally to talk about addiction, but we can say, that if you're having withdrawals from your phone because you're not using it, you can count that as an addiction. So
If you're patting your pockets every time you leave a room, you might have an issue.
Yes, and you're like, oh, I left my phone on the couch, but I'm upstairs. I got to go get it,
Yeah.
even though you're not doing anything on your phone right now,
Right. It's interesting because I've heard on Michigan Public Radio a couple of times, mostly in the last few weeks, they've talked about studies that they've been doing where they got students, young people, so mostly middle school and high school students, to voluntarily give up their phones for 2 weeks. And they did, and the results were astounding. Even the students said, wow, I feel so much better.
Yeah. Yeah, that is an interesting study. Maybe we should do something like that here. Maybe that can be one of the SPAC surveys in the future.
Challenge.
A challenge to the students. That would be fun.
I think the piece to it is the procrastination that it can put you into. If you're looking for an escape or a distraction, and it has that addictive quality, it's going to make you spend more time on it. And then when you finally come out of that hole, you're going to feel, upset. Oh, I'm behind on my stuff, so now I'm stressed, or I feel bad that I procrastinated for so long. I think that, to me, that's where that poor mental health kind of comes in, is that, oh, I've spent this time doing that instead of something more productive.
Yeah, I think that's really important to note because we did have an episode where we talked about mental health just recently. And I think it's important where we said if you take something away that has been an addiction or has been a vice for you, for example, like you mentioned, where it's like, okay, well, I use it as a distraction on purpose. The problem is if you take that away, then there's a void, right? And in that void, you still have to fill it with something. So we were talking about encouraging people to do more physical activity. Maybe it's not going to the gym. We know not everybody likes the gym, right? But yeah, go for a walk. I don't know if you have pets, but maybe walk your dog twice a day instead of once a day kind of thing, or maybe go to the park or try to find a public community activity that you can partake in that will fill that void. Yeah. And for those that are introverted, we understand that's not necessarily an option for you, but you can, read some more or do something that you enjoy doing that can replace that so that there's not this hole that you're trying to fill. Because ultimately you're going to go right back to that thing. I mean, that's how addictions work, right? So
I think COVID was an interesting experience for all of us because we were taken out of our social networks physically. Some of the technology backfilled on that, but like you say, find something else to do. I can't tell you how many of my friends took up gourmet cooking during that time frame. I had friends who now can knit whole sweaters. So I think that your point is well taken. You don't have to take a walk or be social away from your phone, but try some of those things you've always said you wanted to learn how to do and haven't done that yet.
Right.
At my age, I'm taking piano lessons.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
And it's, it's a challenge because it's very different than everything else I do in my life.
Right. And just a shameless plug for our workforce group here on campus. In their office, they have almost like extracurricular classes that you can take. If you are a student, they are free to you. If you're staff, they're free as well. If you're a community member, they do come at a small fee depending on which class you choose. But it could be anything from pottery to cooking class to, building a car.
Welding.
Yeah. So if you're interested in that and you want more details about our workforce classes, that could be something that you can supplement and you can use that as a filling of the void for you. But there are also options in the community as well. So you can come to Student Life and we'd be more than happy to walk you through and connect you with the right people. But I think that that's an ideal thing for you to partake in. And I know a lot of people's argument is, well, I don't have the money to be able to, because I'm paying for classes. Like, how would I afford that? I understand. I get that. And so there are free options for you, though. There are a lot of options, especially in the community where they are footing the bill in order to get people more interested in certain topics. So
I would like to throw out that people could volunteer their time too.
Yes.
I've always worked in nonprofits, and I know right now nonprofits are struggling to find people who can volunteer. And I know with college students, there's a lot of demands on college students' time. But, pick something like, I don't know, the Humane Society where you can go 1 day a week for 3 hours and just help feed or clean or do whatever.
Right.
Because that can make a huge difference and you won't be using your phone.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think that's incredibly important. And one of the things that I really wanted to touch on in this podcast was the generational divide when it comes to social media. And like I know, especially I'm a millennial for those that are listening. But I got a lot when I was younger about how, this generation doesn't know anything about, and they're socially inept and they only spend time on their phone and they don't talk to anybody else but the people on their phone, or they'll call the person sitting next to them. That's not exactly untrue, right? We have done that. We do that. But what I want to know from you guys is, what strategies do you face that balance your social media and your face-to-face interactions with people to kind of dispel that assumption that we don't communicate face-to-face anymore?
I think it's just so difficult sometimes when you're sitting at a table full of people and people are looking at your phones. I, myself, as a more reserved person, almost feel like I'm interrupting them if they're looking at their phone.
Yeah.
So I wish people would kind of make eye contact and start those conversations more easily, because I feel like the phone is a barrier.
Right. Yeah, it does present itself as a barrier, that's for sure. How about anybody else? What do you think? How do you balance that a little bit better so that you are getting those face-to-face interactions instead of using social media?
For me, I think it came down to getting involved. Up until like 2022, I really didn't volunteer my time or participate even at my college or anything like that. Now I'm on different committees, different clubs. I volunteer my time at food pantries. I'm just way more connected to my community, and I notice how that has affected my mental health. It's brought me a much more of an outgoing person, much more of a talker, where it was very easy to become very introverted, to be in my room all weekend, to not socialize or make those connections and network. And I think that's been a huge difference in my life now that I've pursued that and put my effort forward.
Yeah, me too. I try to join some associations here at Mott and meetings. When you're in the midst of people talking about something important, I don't think you should bring out your phone. So at least we get to talk to each other physically and without pressing our phones and being so introverted. So those are one of the things that I try to do so that I can talk to humans, not phones.
Yeah. I'm putting those things into practice. Seems like a task, right? Because with the newer generations coming in, it's natural to revert to your phone now. It's not really a thing. I think the opposite for some of the older generations, like they have to adapt to social media, not away from it, like a lot of these newer generations are facing. So I do feel like the argument that they're not as socially prevalent with this newer generation, or they don't talk to each other, or whatever. I don't know if that's necessarily the idea. The idea is that you were born with technology in your hand, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to work away from that the same as they have to work to it. Mm-hmm. So I think thinking of it from that perspective and understanding that there is a generational thing that happens with that, and it just happens to be that's the time period that we live in. And who knows, in the next 5 or 6 generations might have something we don't even know exists yet, and that we all have to tackle the older that we get too.
Yeah, because if you notice people at the hallway when they're waiting for the instructor to open up the door, you see everywhere quiet. Everybody's just pressing their phones, heads bowed. I mean, that is not how it's supposed to be. Right. Previously, you get to meet people, your classmates, like, oh, you came to class? What's up? Have you had this assignment? But no, everywhere's just quiet. Everybody's just minding their business. So
right. Instructors couldn't get their students to be quiet before, and now they can't get them to talk, which is an interesting back and forth.
Yeah, I have so many things to say about that, but
go ahead.
It's interesting because in my line of work, because I work in communications, I've not had the luxury of not learning how to use social media. It's part of my job. And I know people my age who refuse to use it, and they are no longer employed.
Right. Yeah, you can work yourself right out of a job.
Well, and they can't work in communications because they can't swing with the technology. So sometimes I think I'm as bad as an alpha gen when it comes to having my phone in my hand all the time. But I will say that, I too have to make that conscious effort to put the phone down sometimes in social settings. I'll put it in my purse and latch my purse so that it's a chore to get it out. But I've also done something because when I was younger, you didn't go to the doctor's office and have your phone in your hand so you could read the news or answer email or play phone games, whatever. And I've taken to, when I'm in public spaces, putting the phone down and people watching. And I think one of the things that younger generations, and I'll start with you because you're a millennial, but because you were at the cusp of the technology, I don't know if it was 100% for you.
No, I actually started without a computer.
Right, you bridged over. And having lived through all these iterations, I found it interesting that what I found younger people can't do is read people.
Mm-hmm.
Like my daughter, it's so funny, she's 25, and she thinks that it is the height of insecurity for me to drive from my house in Flint, Michigan to my parents' house near Traverse City without a phone. I told her that we used to do it all the time because there was no such thing as a cell phone.
As a cell phone, yeah.
And she's like, well, my God, what happened if you had a breakdown? And I said, you stopped at a payphone, or you stood on the side of the road and someone either came and picked you up or came and said, I will go to the next gas station and call the state police for you. And she said, well, that would take forever. And I'm like, we had nothing better to do. You were broken down on the side of the road.
Right.
But that she also didn't feel it was safe because that she didn't have any way to contact someone to come and help her. And I said, but we helped one another.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting because she has no idea how to read a person. Like I can walk into a room and look around and go, not talking to that one, but I'll talk to those four, because you learn how to read people. And I feel really blessed that when I was in high school, I worked in a restaurant because there's nothing better to teach you how to read people than work in a restaurant.
Yeah.
But all of that to say that the disconnect from other human beings, you are so connected as young people to other human beings, but it's always through the technology that it makes people scary in real life, which I think that's the sad part for people my age.
Yeah.
Because I can walk into a room and I've done this at conferences all the time. And in fact, my daughter has said to me, my God, you'll talk to anybody in any line. Yes.
Right.
I talk to the people on both sides of me in the Kroger line every Saturday. And you just have casual conversations with people and you connect with them. And one lady was going off, and she and I definitely had totally different political views. But we could connect on cat food. We could connect on, children. We could connect on the weather. We didn't have to connect politically. And I think that's part of what technology has done, is it's separated us from each other on that basic level where we can find connection.
Right. Yeah, and it does. It's an exercise these days. It doesn't come naturally to people anymore. It's definitely something that they have to relearn or learn for the first time. And so, and I know, as I mentioned, I didn't have computer until, I don't know, I was probably, at least at home. I had computers at school, obviously, but I was probably, I don't know, a teenager, mid-teens, somewhere in there. And so we decided that we were going to get a computer, and we did eventually have one that was dial-up. For those that you worked with that,
I can still imitate that sound.
And we needed it because I had to have it for school, so we got it. And I remember having to turn. You can't use the phone while you're using the internet, that sort of thing. So that dates me a little bit, but I do remember that slow transition though, because I grew up without that, and I understood what it meant to socialize and go without a cell phone and things. I didn't have a cell phone until I was 18. So it was definitely an interesting transition, but I could see myself morphing into this new version of me where I was spending all my time on my phone. And I didn't have, this will date me too, but I didn't have the cell phone that has the camera and the screen like what we have now. I had the flip phones, and I had the BlackBerry with the, keyboard, all that stuff. So it took a minute for me to get to the level that I am now because we didn't have the technology that supported that. But not to discredit the fact that we're at basketball games with my friends and somebody gets a brand new cell phone. The what was the one that was called? It was like Kick something. And it used to, you press the screen up and it would flip around, and it was really cool. And the Sidekick, that's what it was, the Sidekick. And I remember when my friend got that cell phone for the first time, and we were all just standing around her at a basketball game. And we're like, this is amazing. Check this out. And everybody was like, the technology was just wild at the time. And it's progressed so rapidly that now we have computers in our glasses. Like, it is unbelievable.
They just made us new state of matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is,
it's insane.
There are so many different perks to technology. And then there's some sketchier things out there that we're experiencing these days. But I think that it's been a benefit to society, but it's been a deterrent for us growing on a personal level. And I think that's unfortunate, but I do think it's a learned thing for sure.
Well, there's a yin and yang to everything.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But, back to the very beginning of our conversation, when we talked about having this computer in our pocket that makes phone calls that nobody actually makes anymore. If you want to look at it, it's a tool.
Yeah.
It's like a hammer. Would you carry a hammer with you everywhere, and would you use it to do everything? And so
That's true.
It's
a good way to look at it.
Yeah, and so sometimes put the phone down and open the recipe book instead of asking the phone. Or ask your grandma, because I'm sure she knows how to make that.
Right. Yeah, I think that's another disconnect, because oftentimes we don't have that familial connection either. Like, instead of going to the recipe book that my mother hand wrote for me when I was younger, I just jumped to TikTok. And I'm like, oh, TikTok will tell me how to make this. And I'm like, man, you're just missing some of the authentic, raw, like, interactions that you could have with family, friends, etc. And so that's an unfortunate thing. But I do think that there are many perks, as you said, being a tool in the positive sense. We have so many new resources when it comes to figuring out how to do things, and like not having to necessarily take a large chunk of time out of our day. Like you mentioned, we started with YouTube, and a lot of people affectionately call it YouTube University, because you could like pick out the very specific thing you want to learn, and you have a long form version of that you can learn from. TikTok is a version of that, but much shorter and much more condensed. And it is, I think, contributing to our very short attention spans that we have today. And so that's a negative part of it, even though the content is great. So there's always these back and forth that work and don't work with it. Okay, I have one more question, and it's typically the same question that I ask almost at the end of every single podcast. But in this version of it, it's obviously related to social media. But it is, what advice would you give to your younger self or students about building a positive online presence? So, and that could be subjective. You decide what that means.
I mean, I think definitely putting those limits in place for myself earlier. Having more of a structure when it comes to social media, not just being free willy with it and just doing whatever I want. That's definitely the advice I'd give to my younger self.
Yeah. Controlling what I want to see online and what I don't want to see online. I mean, there are so many things that I see online that I don't want to see, but it just comes to me. So I have to take control of myself. That's what I'm just going to tell my young self.
There you go. And all those that are out there listening, I hope that you get some advice too, because there's plenty to go around, and I'm sure you have some too. If you do have any advice for us on how we can better manage our time with social media, just drop it in the comments, and we will respond and give you our feedback on that as well.
My advice to my younger self would be to buy Apple stock.
Yeah, that's good advice. I remember when I was in grade school, I was probably, 10th grade, 11th grade, something like that. And Google became a thing. Mm-hmm. And it was brand new. And I remember my teacher mentioning that this new tech was coming out, and his financial advisor was recommending that he puts his stock into Google, and he didn't. And he came back and he gave us the numbers. And by the time that he told us that, and this was a couple of years after Google became a thing, he said that he had lost out on $500 million based on what his financial advisor told him to put in. And he didn't do it. And he was like, I would be a millionaire. I would be a multi-millionaire right now. And I didn't take that advice. And he's like, I'm not telling you to go out there and find a financial advisor that tells you to put all your money into one place. But he is saying, listen to the technology. That is the future. That it is never going to go away. It's only going to get more interesting. We'll say interesting. We don't know what it's going to look like. And obviously we are not here to give you financial advice. So I don't recommend that you go do any of that. We're not telling you to do that. But I will say, that is how influential technology is, and how we need to lean into those things in the future and really consider how they impact us and how they influence our daily lives and our decisions that we make and how we interact with people. It's incredibly important, and that's definitely not something you want to take for granted, for sure. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate the conversation. And I know this one was slightly shorter than what we are normally used to, but I think that there are plenty of platforms to continue talking about. Maybe we'll have another episode regarding social media. And for those of you that are interested, speaking of social media, Student Life has their own social media pages for Mott Community College. We have an Instagram. We have a Facebook page. I'm going to be totally honest with you. We don't frequent our Facebook page very often due to the fact that our polling has stated that our largest demographic does not use Facebook. So we do have some things up there, but if you're genuinely interested and you only have Facebook as an option and you're not seeing anything on there, feel free to drop by the Office of Student Life. We can kind of give you some updates on some of our programs and materials. We do have a TikTok page. I'm not going to lie, there's not much on there, but we're working on it. We're trying to get there as fast as we can. So if you are interested in becoming a part of our social media team and you would like to advance a little bit in some professionalism when it comes to communication on campus, you're more than welcome to come and visit Student Life. We do have some positions open for editors and individuals who might like to navigate our social media and be managers of that for us as well. So if you are a student at Mott and you have gone through the process for student employment through the Student Employment Office on campus and you are interested, you're more than welcome to come chat with us a little bit more about that. Otherwise, again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us and talking a little bit about social media. Hopefully we'll have plenty more to say in regards to what things might pop up in the future as far as new apps and things like that. So if you guys have any extra information or you want to join, or maybe you want to be on this podcast in the future, if you're a student at Mott, you can come in, hang out with us a little bit. We'll introduce you and perhaps you have a topic that you'd like to share with us. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day and your week, and we will see you next week. Go Bears.
And that is it for this episode of Bear Blast. Thanks for hanging out with us. Be sure to follow us so you're always in the know about what's happening at Mott. And for even more Bear content, check us out on TikTok and Instagram. Just search for MCC Student Life. Until next time, go Bears!